Hi, everyone. Caught us in a brief moment of hilarity, and so happy to be here today. Chat's wide open. We depend on chat, and so pleased and honored to have Kelly with us and Jason again. We make, I think, a very important quality trio, and we're here to bring you as much value add that we can. And again, chat's open. Always look forward to comments. So why don't we start out with Jason today? Jason, uh, why don't you bring everybody a little up to date and what your first thoughts on quality is?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Great to be here with Donna Kelly. I have a new client that cycles through on Thursdays, so I haven't been able to join you guys as much as I would like to, but that's great. So with that said, yeah, I brought on 3 new clients in the last
Congratulations.
month. So that's growing and doing well, and still being of service. That's my whole thing. I'm working with Yellow Cares, which is a hospice group, and they have the Center for Hope and for Loss and Hope, and I'm volunteering with them. And then I just got certified yesterday as a speaker for it's called Stop Stigma Sacramento, and it's through my local, well, it's Sacramento, which is the capital, but county, which is adjacent to where my county is. And I'll be sharing my story about mental health and stuff like that to different groups. And so I'm excited about that. Going first, it's exciting. And it's always interesting to see where these conversations take us, right? That's where, this is a great group, and we'll see. But I want to add this. I want to start with this about quality. And this is interesting because we were having another conversation before. So quality, the definition that I found was, a standard of something measured against things of a similar kind. And what I want to say about that is that whoever sets your rulers, meaning the device you measure by, rules the system.
Yes.
And that's so quality is an interesting thing. So quality by whose standard? Quality by that. And this is what I'm saying, interesting conversation we were just having, is Abraham Maslow, pretty famous writer, pretty famous person. He said to be self-actualized, you have to be independent of the good opinions of others. And so who tells you that you are quality? Where are you judging that from? Or where do you see quality? If we step back and look at, why do I think that is high quality? Why does that, who told me that you have to have these many points of a diamond to be a certain class of diamond, right? Where does that come from? And same way with us. Who is setting these standards oh, this is what I'm doing has quality and it's good, when we know inside. So I'll leave it at that and see where it goes. And if it doesn't, if it comes back, it comes back.
Well, that's a great liftoff. So happy you got some new clients, and always looking forward to the excitement in others to get me excited. So nice to live vicariously. Kelly, love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so Jason is doing a lot of quality things, and I am measuring that because you do so many incredible things giving back, and love hearing these things happen for you. It's wonderful. And you're right. This is, again, another one of those words of like, where are we going to take this one today? But you bring up such an incredible point that I think, with social media, because it is a place where, we can measure ourselves against others, but we don't really know what we're measuring against. Just because somebody is an influencer or has 1 million followers, you don't know anything really about them. You know that they have numbers, and now you're comparing yourself. So it's the self-comparison that we get into to do our own quality. And you're right. The only measure of quality is how, we feel about ourselves and what we're doing. And of course, that's where my faith comes in and center. And then that's where I look to know that I'm doing quality things or wanting to do more. And I think even to get into a little bit more about quality of, being on LinkedIn, talking about our content, because I think there's quality in content. There's some people that I love their content. Jason, one of them, yours is always so thoughtful, so meaningful, and high quality. And same with this, Don, doing live streaming. It's a way to get quality content out quickly. And doing it with a low barrier to entry. You just need a third-party platform, which is low cost, but it puts out what we, talk about all the time. It gives you credibility and visibility, and that's what people want and are looking for, to see quality in people that they can relate to, and or brands. What does that look like? And today I did my post on today is National Bologna Day. Like, who knew that was a thing? Um, and I tend to find things like I look in the morning and I'll be like, what's inspiring me today? Because I thought it's always a fun way for people to learn something when it's fun. Because if I were just to go put up marketing tips or leadership coaching tips or something, not that people wouldn't find quality in that, but sometimes I think having a spin of fun or a different angle to come in just broadens it to maybe people who would maybe have never read it. And trying to give quality content and having fun with it. And I feel so different about it now, doing it with what inspires me, what moves me to post, as opposed to, oh man, I got to get a post out today. Because that feels terrible. And I think we've probably all been there at one point or another. We're like, God, I got to put up a post. I'm not really into it. And you can look back on some of it and be like, that wasn't my best quality work.
Right.
But we all have those days. So I'll leave it there this time, Don.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a word that can have so many different meanings, so many different applications. I look at quality as sustainable value, right? Something that will last. And it may not be because of it, but what it does, it makes you feel that you carry with you, right? You can have a revelation, or you can be out in nature and just something comes over you that sticks with you. It's the value add that comes with the product, the service, the conversation. And, when you really look at quality, you look at nature, because in so many ways, it's so perfect. When you see a bird flying, an eagle, a hawk, and you're just, no matter how many times you see it, it takes your breath away. And it's amazing. And what it really relates to is your ability to understand, appreciate, and see it for yourself. Too many people, the movie comes out, well, what's the Rotten Tomatoes? What is everybody saying? And you take that pleasure of yourself experiencing something for yourself before having biased opinions. Someone says that restaurant is the best place I've ever been. You're going in expecting that, or the worst place I've ever been, and you go in expecting that, and it steals the moment. And if you look at family, how much quality, again, depending on the family and the individual, sticks with you. And you say, thinking back, that was really a
Whoops. He doesn't have a quality connection. Oh no!
There he is.
Yeah. It's like a trapeze or something, or when the oops, you're not connected comes on. Somehow it seems to come on at the same time and go off at the same time. So it's really a pause. So I know we got away from quality, but that also tells you what lack of quality is when you're on technology and it takes you off course, makes you think. But I think when you look deep inside yourself, you ask yourself, did I bring more to the table today than I took? Did I add more to someone else? Did I bring something? And what we're doing today is legacy. There's people who will see this, hear this, and feel this in ways we'll never know, and people will never even get to know or meet, but we know it has that potential and creation of quality. And a lot of people, they pride themselves on quality. If you see a good box of chocolates, quality chocolate since 1875, and people, like Kelly had mentioned, your brand is all about quality, being a quality person, putting out quality content. And, it may not be the Mona Lisa, but it's the best you can do. And there was a book by an interesting gentleman that says, all you can do is all you can do, and that's what you should do, right? And don't measure yourself against other people.
Yeah.
Because it's never a true measure. They're in a different place, different experiences, have reached their level of, let's say, achievement. But, I love reading audibles. I'm listening to Al Pacino right now. And here's a man who went broke so many times, started out so poor, and worked his way up. and you find life has those same somersaults that for everybody. You're only on top for so long, and you only have to be on the bottom for so long, right? And if you look at the extension of time, everything can balance if you give it the time. So anyways, without going too deep into it, Jason, what are your thoughts?
So many thoughts, so many thoughts. They say that you've gone through all of your worst days, so give yourself credit for that. Just to mention what you're saying, we got here through all of our worst days and our best days up to this point. Both of them are there, and we're here today. And we're talking in the beginning about waking up, having another day. This is kind of off topic, but a quote that I share and I love is, and I'm going to paraphrase, of course, Salvador Dali. He says he wakes up every morning and he's like, asks himself, what is today's Salvador Dali what amazing thing is this Salvador Dali going to do today? We have a fresh start every day. We have the chance to make something of quality, as it were. Talking about the that little glitch in the internet there, it just reminded me talking about how LinkedIn Lives, I'm blessed to know a lot of amazing people and to be invited to do things like this and to participate and hopefully I add value and quality to everything that I join in. I'm on Insight Timer, which is an app for meditations, and people can do lives and things of that nature. And there was a program called Ask the Guides. Your guides are your teachers, so to speak. And I was on a panel there was 9 of us total. There was a moderator and then her support, and then 7 of us other teachers were on there. And it was live, and it was last Friday evening. And to go technical for a second, so Insight Timer, you're going live on there is challenging. So they use a third party, kind of like what we're doing here, to connect. Well, they don't like to play well together, apparently. And so we couldn't get the sound. So people couldn't hear us and they couldn't hear her, the moderator, and it just was a thing. But we were just all calm. And, especially for me, like I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer. This is what I do. Hopefully it comes across. I'm very comfortable in this. But all of us were just like, it's okay. It's all right. We're going to figure it out. And we were joking and laughing, and that confidence inside comes out, and you're more likely to give a better product when you have that confidence inside. And that's what, for all of us, it was just, we were kind of laughing about it and we figured it out. And it took about 7 or 8 minutes to get everything figured out, and everyone was waiting and everyone was kind, and it showed up, and we had a great talk we actually talked for an hour and a half, and just kind of shared. And I want to give credit for, doing stuff like this, because this teaches you how to roll with the punches and how to understand that quality is not perfection. That's where I was going with all this. Quality is not perfection. And you have the opportunity every time and everything you do to give it the most quality, to give it the most value for others that you can. And that's the opportunity that you have with everything that you do. Every day you show up, you can do that.
Yeah, I love that quality isn't perfection, because perfection is almost impossible to attain, sustain, and replicate or duplicate. But and I'll switch it right back to Kelly. But the key is trying to do a little bit better than you did the day before in one or more areas. And it could be taking a longer walk. It could be watching what you're eating better today. Just little things that are comfortable to make those adjustments, because people go from one extreme to the other.
Right.
January 1st, everybody wants to lose weight. Everybody wants to get, everybody wants to be everything they haven't been as of today or that day. And they create a resolution. Some people take action, which is worse than having not having a resolution, or having a resolution and taking action and not doing anything with it. A lot of people just, put in their time, check in, check out, and they live a life of quiet solitude and challenges, when they should start at the bottom at the beginning and look at the sky and see that's perfection. Things that are touched by people can never be perfect, because you always have the ego involved. You always have the competition. You always have people who are just very weak, and to compensate, they try to get real strong.
Right.
And they get seen in ways they wish they never could have been seen. So, Kelly, I think Jason's point is we're here because of all of our bad days and all of our good days. How do you feel about that?
Yes, totally agree. I think that's something I post on an occasion is, friendly reminder, you have survived 100% of your bad days, and that's a pretty darn good track record. But I think the quality is not perfection is brilliant. And I saw this post yesterday, and it went through like 1 times 9 is 9, 2 times 9 is 18, and all the way up to 9 times 10 equals 91. And all the comments were all about how, well, that doesn't equal 91. Like, what an idiot. Like, everybody was picking on that. It's like, isn't it fascinating how people can see someone who did 10 things and one of them was incorrect and nobody was celebrating the 9 that he got correct? I was like, man, that's powerful. But that's what social media does tend to do to people, because there's so much reward in finding the imperfection in things and pointing it out. And that's not quality. And one of my things has always been too on social media, because it can be a negative place for some people. And I always wonder, hey, if you're seeing posts that you don't like either like hide them or, block them, remove them, or continue to scroll. You don't have to engage in what isn't good for you. And I think that's so important on social media, for the extent of people can go down a pretty dark hole if you want to, and you can do it pretty quickly with self-comparison. So I do think it's about being careful and the quality of the content that you're consuming, because we do become what we surround ourselves with. And I also say this, and I do practice this. Sundays, I disconnect completely from everything. Because when we're around the noise all of the time, we do start to become part of the noise, because we're consumed by it. And whether or not you think it's good quality, bad quality, it's probably not the best quality for you to have any kind of peace and to bring your best quality forward. So I think it's about paying attention to those things too. And, we haven't even begun to talk about like quality products or quality brands and how we build trust. And I mean, there's so many different ways. But I think because we are on a social platform and we're presenting content, it just seems like the obvious thing for us all to be talking about, and how we consume the content, and what do we consider quality, and removing those things that make us feel uncomfortable or maybe make us feel away. Write down when you feel like, God, why did this post bother me so much? Or I'm feeling angst. Why did it bother me? Write it down, note it, and see if you can figure a pattern. Because sometimes there might be something, and Jason's will be a good segue for you too, because I always like your insight on things, is for people to recognize what it is within themselves that they probably still need to heal. Because social media can do that. It's a lot of content that we are not really made or built to consume as much as we do and process it all properly. So I think I'll leave it there this time.
Jason, what's your thoughts for the segue?
That's a big meatball. That's a lot. And thank you for pitching that softball over. Yeah, I mean, I agree exactly, and that's what it is as within, so without. If you see a peaceful world, you have peace inside. If you see an angry world, that means you have anger inside, and we all have both of those. But it's how you're looking at things, and it's how you choose to see things. To your point, yeah, there is so much information coming in at us at a time, and we can only process so much. It's our unconscious mind can pick up millions of bits of information per second. Our conscious mind can only pick up about 40 to 50 bits of information, believe it or not, per second, because there's so much coming at us. And what you filter out and what you take is based on your past experiences. And so that's why we get into echo chambers, and that's why we get into these thought patterns, because what we're doing is, once again, quality, we're talking about quality, and quality is a comparison. And so what are you comparing it against? Well, we compare things against our past experiences. And so that's why when things are showing up, Carl Jung says that, when you see something you don't like in someone else, it's reflecting part of you that you need to work on. So basically just what you said, Kelly. And that's what happens with these posts. Now, sometimes it's just like I'm on social media because of my business. I'm on LinkedIn for me, and I love joining you guys, and I love being on LinkedIn. And that's why it's my, the provider that I use the most. I'm here the most, but I'm on a couple of the other ones. One of you mentioned earlier, and another one's owned by the same company. And it's, it's kind of the reality of the time is like, you have to, and I have choices, I have options. I could choose not to be on there. I have to reflect though, because guess what? And I'm going in really off script, but the people that need the most help are those that are yelling fire in the theater. That's the problem that we have right now, is that we see someone that has an opinion that's not ours, or someone that rubs us the wrong way, and we shut them down, and we're like, okay, screw them. Now, to your point earlier, yes, we have to protect ourselves. And yes, if it's someone we don't know and it's just somebody shouting standing on a box shouting to just get attention, yeah, you don't have to plug into that. Move on, next, as Wayne Dyer used to say, next, turn that page, move on. But if it's someone that you're engaged with, it's someone that you want to, just keep in mind that they want to be heard for whatever reason, and this is where it gets challenging. We talked about forgiveness earlier, and just off camera, so to speak. And that's what forgiveness comes in, because you're forgiving that part of them that lives inside of you, and be able to look and say, okay, what are they shouting out for? What do they need? And once again, there's times when we're not here to save the world. We're not here to help everybody, but we're also not here to add to anything negative. So like you said, Kelly, I love it. You just move on and don't add to it, and don't look for that negativity, and don't go, oh, well, you did this wrong and you did that wrong, and I don't like that you did this. Why are you taking the time to tell me that? I don't understand. If I made a mistake, thank you for help. If your intention is to help me, if your intention is to help me be a better person, a better, coach, or a better whatever, thank you. But if you're doing it to elevate yourself, or to elevate your point of view, or to prove a point that no one cares about, there's no reason for that, And so that's where we get into, I keep going back to the quality. It's measuring against things of a similar kind. Are you in a pond of people of a similar kind? Does it make sense? Are you where you need to be? We don't want to get in the echo chamber where everyone's the same.
That's right.
But if you're trying to compare yourself against someone that just is not, as Kelly says, your jam, then you're wasting everyone's time. You're just really wasting everyone's time, and you're just going through the process to go through the process.
Yeah.
Life's, every day is a blessing. Life's too short, and those are they're there for a reason. We say them for a reason because it's so true. They're truisms. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say about that. About we have the opportunity to choose, and when you have an opportunity to choose kindness. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I so
you did great with that meatball. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I so believe in what you just said, and it kind of harkens back to older sayings that equate with quality, which was classy. That person really did something classy. And a lot of these people are unknowns. These are people who may not have had that much education or that many opportunities, but they're so wise, they're so kind. And ultimately, it all, I believe, comes back to love being the answer. Yeah. Anytime you engage in a loving way, you're going to get benefit just for the provider of it, not the receiver of it. Too many people are concerned with what did I get, not what did I do or what did I help. But, and they look at their bank accounts, and they look at their home prices and their stock portfolio, and they measure success by things that aren't directly related to them, things that they can lose overnight without any fault of their own. I mean, look at all those poor people in North Carolina. Look at all these people who woke up one day to a life and went to bed without it. And how do you begin again? Actually, I had a person for about 6 months that started the show with me, Gretchen Skelka, and she lost everything. Her house exploded,
Mm.
and her and her husband got out just in time and woke up with no home, no records, no papers, nothing, and had to figure out, where are we going to sleep tonight, let alone all of the trauma that goes with it. So,
Yeah.
you know, that saying, you know, I worried about not having any shoes until I saw the boy with no feet.
Right.
You know, all of a sudden you put that in perspective, and you know, the more something happens to you, the easier it is to deal with. It's ignorance and innocence sometimes that you're like, that never happened to me. And if it happens consistently, not only to you, but others, it's not abnormal. It shouldn't be like, oh my goodness. And how many people say when it's in their backyard, it means something, but it's been in everybody else's backyard forever and they didn't seem to be affected by it.
Yeah.
And life is not easy. And life is not something you can always determine. It's circumstances, situations. You know, someone should have stayed home for 5 more seconds. Maybe they wouldn't have gotten that accident. I mean, you can knock yourself out thinking what ifs, but it's what's next that's really the redeeming factor. Where you've been doesn't mean that's where you need to keep going. And sometimes the biggest disappointments, the biggest frustrations are your wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It took that much to get me off of where I was, because most people kind of gravitate to safety, to comfort.
Of course.
But
Yeah,
those,
comfort, because it's not necessarily safe sometimes. And comfort can be not a good place to be.
and you got to ask yourself, why do you need comfort at this point? You know, how many people rest too much, do too little, and they blame the world when they can be part of the world and contribute. You know, waiting for something to happen is not as valuable as making something happen. And it could just read another good page of a good book today. How do you get your mind in the right place? And judgment is never good either way. You never like to be judged, and you never want to judge, because in most cases you're wrong. The other element I'll toss in is being authentic, being original. That's hard these days, right? Because you don't know what a bot is, you don't know what an avatar is, you don't know what AI is doing, you don't know how much of what you just heard is genuine or built and composed for that purpose. And I think now is the time to learn about silence, you know, to enjoy quiet, to be in a room with nothing and just be yourself and be with yourself. And also slowing down. Just because everything's speeding up doesn't mean you got to speed up to it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, sometimes you get so ahead of everything and you're wondering, where are they? Well, they're doing things the way everybody does things. You're the one who's lapping everybody, and you're the one who is putting out these huge expectations. You know, what is failure? I don't know. It's when you determine it is. I always look at everything as win or learn. Either way, you're going to benefit. If you learn enough, you'll start winning, and you'll find out sometimes what you won wasn't worth doing. You know, I mean, I've done things, and, you know, I believe perseverance always wins the day. Keep yourself in the game, even if you got to take a break, even if you got to come back in a different way. But don't try to put a square peg in a round hole. And so many people are pounding that thing in with a hammer. And the problem is you can never get it out if you do it that way. And everybody knows you did it. You know, you forced it instead of allowing nature, allowing things to have its way and time. There's a season for everything. And people should enjoy the pause. They should enjoy the moment. And you know what? They should enjoy the best of what's around them. And usually having really good relationships are the things that you can lean into when you're having a difficult time, because you need to talk to someone. If you bottle it up and you become a vacuum and you keep looping it, it never gets better. It just gets more more detailed. Oh, and here's another thing I just remembered. Here's another thing. Well, you already built the case. At a certain point, it's like a balloon. You got to let it go, and things will start to happen. It's easy to hear when you're in your worst situation.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up and you never could believe, here's where I found myself after all this. But you know what? If people were really aware, it wouldn't be that much of a surprise, because things build to that usually. And you need to really take care of the people who take care of you. And I think that's the point. When you got enough, work with it, enjoy it. How many people have a goal? As soon as they hit it, they never even celebrate. Now on to the next mountain. So it's all been work, it's all been struggle, and it's usually at the expense of other people and themselves. How many people do things they love and they're awful at it, but they can't wait to do it. To me, that's more fun than being the best at something and having, like Kelly and Jason have alluded to, oh, I got to go to work today. Oh, I got to belly up to the bar and do my thing. And you almost feel like I'm just an actor in a play, when they say, okay, curtain up, now I become this person. And that's why they always say clowns are usually the most saddest people. I don't know why that is, but it's because they're trying to make people laugh, maybe when they're not very happy inside. They got to switch personas and allow yourself the luxury of losing and taking it in stride. And I always say to myself, no matter what happens, I've been through worse, and knowing that, I know I can get through this. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's not important, because I know once I start moving forward, things will start to happen. So Kelly.
Yeah, wow. That meatball just keeps getting bigger. So many incredible points. And one of them that keeps coming to mind, of course, is mindset, right? And then Jason, you were talking about this, and gosh, it's so true. And it's something why I think it's so important. I start every single one of my days with gratitude and some scripture. Like, that's what I do to get my mindset, because I believe when we walk into something, and this was something that I talked about a lot in leadership coaching, actually, is because people struggle going to like those weekly meetings that people had with that person that you're like, oh God, it's going to be the same meeting that we just had last week, and nothing's going to happen, and it's going to be terrible, and whatever. The situation will be exactly how you anticipate it to be. So if you go in going, this meeting is absolutely going to suck, you're going to pick every piece of information that sucks to prove the belief that you have set. Same goes for if you go in going, you know what, it's going to be different today. I think it's going to be great. You're going to pick every piece of information that makes it great to prove the belief that you have set to be correct. And that is how it is in life, how we face the world every day. If I wake up and I think, God, it sucks because the job market sucks, and having such a difficult time getting work, and rents are so high, and food is so expensive, and gosh, there's all this other stuff. What a glum way to walk out, because then I'm looking for everything that is gray and crappy, and we have no control over those things. Like, I have no control over what's happening with the price of bacon. But I can't let it control how I do things either. But so again, I think so much is important about mindset. And I think you all said so many things, and I need to write more notes. And I'm always afraid I'm going to miss something and not pay attention well. But I think quality, as far as product and or brand, here now I'll spin it back to business, is it's different to everybody, right? And this goes back to Jason's point about we all really do measure it on a different stick. Like, who are we measuring it against? As an example, I recently was someplace while I was traveling, and asked someone for a to go to. Like, hey, what's a great local spot? Well, the local spot they sent me to, I did not think was quality. And I was like, but their measuring stick of what it is, like, this is where they were comfortable. And, nothing wrong with that. Just wasn't my jam. So taking that into consideration too, and I still took away like a great experience, because it was like, wow, this is interesting, because it's telling me also so much about this person. And so I think it is interesting because all of our views of quality are also a little bit different, because I may think, 800 thread count sheets are the best. And Don may be like, well, I'm fine with the 250 thread. Like, that's ridiculous. I would never pay that much more for those sheets. So it is a different, different strokes for different folks. But also, I think respecting that in others and knowing exactly that, just because you think this is you have a different measuring stick for what quality means to you, doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that it's different. And I think that's part of, with the world today, and I certainly won't go down that path, of people saying, when you don't agree with me, you're wrong. And I think that's such a shame, because we are missing quality life lessons and things that we could learn from others when we knock down all of those check boxes and pre-approvals that we think we need to have, and be like, well, Jason, you don't think exactly like me, so dude, I'm not going to listen to anything you say.
Right.
I think that's a shame, because we are missing out then, I think, on quality experiences, opportunities, all the things. And I think I'll leave it there this time.
Well, that's a great place to leave it, and a great place for Jason to pick up from it.
Yeah, and talking about items, the challenge is, and kind of to tie it back to everything else we've been talking about, the challenge is that, Kelle, you could speak to this, marketing, telling someone what quality is and directing them towards that. And then that's where marketing could be positive for the company, but it also could have a negative spin where people try to sell you the so-called snake oil, and try to show you, oh, well, this is why this is such a great product. And they're telling the top 3 spots about this product that actually is pretty good, but they're not telling you the 17 other parts about this product that are bad for the environment, or bad for your health, or bad for your family, or, all that stuff. They're going to highlight those 3 points that are going to show you, oh my goodness, that's such a great product. If you ever watched like the home shopping networks that were big back when I was growing up as a youngster, and I know they're still around at some level. I have no idea what they're like now, but they used to sell you those real quick and real fast. Hey, look at this. Here's the 3 points of why you have to buy this. You have 17 minutes. Exactly. Buy it now. And I'm telling you, this is great quality. Look at my mom, rest in peace, loved Black Hills Gold. And boy, there was a channel for Black Hills Gold, and they would tell her all the great stuff about their company's Black Hills Gold, and why it was the quality and the highest and the best. And she was on the rotary phone back in the days, dialing that number, to buy that. But that's the challenge, is that once again, it all goes back to, how are you measuring and who's measuring? And that's a challenge that we have today. Once again, what we've been talking about, there's so much information. The people, and I say they, marketing, people that are selling to you, they know that we have very limited attention and very limited time. And that's the reality of having so much information. And we feel that we don't have enough time. And so we don't take time. And so we make those impulse decisions. I have a saying, when people try to, first of all, you can't sell to me. I've just been doing this for too long. I trained people to sell. And so you can't sell to me. If there's something that I'm not going to buy, there's nothing you can do legally, short of threat of force, to get me to buy something. And so people try to force that conversation. And I say, listen, thank you for sharing whatever you shared, but if you need an immediate answer, my answer is no. If you need an immediate answer, I'm not going to change anything. But if you want me to actually look at your product and take an educated look at it, I'm more than happy to. I'd love to step
Jason,
back.
don't you love your family enough to get this high quality product now?
No, I don't. Yeah, exactly. And that's so true. And those techniques, and I'm like, it's always a big sigh. I'm like, I know exactly what you're doing. But so that's the other thing too about quality, and people could take advantage of that. And so products, do your research, do your due diligence, look at what's that. Don't take someone's word for it. If someone says, oh, these 3 things, that's great. And what else? And then you look at, and then we talk about value, but looking at values being what's important to us, whether it's a product or it's a person. Does this fulfill what's important to me? So maybe that, I don't need the most clarity of a diamond. I need a bigger diamond or whatever it might be.
Right.
But what's important to me? And so that's the same thing with the quality of product, is you also then still have to make those decisions inside.
Yeah, those are wonderful points. And, the good thing about these get-togethers is I don't know what I'm going to say until I just heard what someone else said. Right. And it's easier then to build on because there's continuity, but it struck you with something that now allows you to strike other people in a most positive way. And quality, to Jason's point, to me means what's your favorite? And I have favorites that have nothing to do with money. Some of my favorite things are pictures I have.
Right.
And they're priceless because they can't be replaced. And not only are they wonderful and make me feel better, but they come alive. They bring me back. If you have a picture of you at Thanksgiving 30 years ago, and you see all the family members that were there, and it takes you back, and you feel like you can sense the smells in the air from the dinner table, the conversations, the people, that has real value. And when you can have real value with modest means and modest opportunities and feel like you're the king or queen of the castle, because I've got an Afghan my grandmother knit for me when I got my first apartment, like in the 70s, and I still have it. And every time it's a little cold and I put it around me, I can feel her. I can feel her hands that made it, And I used to even say with my grandmother is no matter what she cooked with love, and it has to be healthy. So it wasn't about calories. It wasn't about fat. It was something that came from her heart. Mm-hmm. And if you can accumulate that, you can always go back to it, because in my darkest times, I remember my almost worst disappointment in business. It was so traumatic and surprising that I left it like in 10 minutes after hearing about it and rushed over to my mother's house. And she treated me like she used to when I was a kid, 6, 7 years. Well, let me get you some cookies. Let me get you a glass of milk.
That's quality.
Yeah, whatever it is, she didn't even care about the details. She just knew I needed her in the way she was always there for me. And it made my day a lot better, because I found out what I was worried about was just an opportunity that didn't happen. I remember this 12-year-old girl that really made an impact on me. And we were at an event, and I got introduced to her, and she was a very, very talented actor. And she was up for the biggest role in Denver's theater for a part, and she came in second. And I went up to her and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that." And she says, "I'm not. I just believe this allowed me to get my best part yet, that I wouldn't have had the opportunity if I would have taken that part." So she always, at that age, had the confidence to say, "No big deal. There'll be something better up the road." And if you have that strength of character, and to Kelle's point, that strength of faith, that's enough to believe you don't have to know everything. You don't have to understand everything, and you don't have to know what's coming next. It is a level of trust and belief and faith. And it also helps for someone to say, "Hey, I think you're still pretty cool," whoever that person is. And I like you just the way you are, and you don't have to do or be anything different to be something special. And you start to realize that being humble, being modest, having humility is qualities most people never achieve, because, they've been spoon-fed or just one good thing piled onto another. And one day you'll be like everybody else in one way or another. And why not get there early enough where everything good is a premium, not an expectation. And every disappointment isn't a roadblock. It's a detour. It's a pivot, And I think when you take responsibility and you're accountable, and you don't blame the world, and you don't blame everything around it, and you say, "Well, it is what it is. I'm still me. I'm more than capable. And, loving yourself, having that self-care goes a long way. And saying, hey, things are so awful. I'm going to Baskin Robbins getting a blizzard. And I don't care what the calories are. I don't care how much saturated fat. That's what I'm going to do for myself. And I deserve it. And, maybe it's a small prize, but it's like, time out. I don't need this anymore. And I think that also lends itself to the belief that don't put all your eggs in one basket or one person. If you have 7 things that you're involved in and one goes a little sour, you've got 6 to pivot to. Could be a good book, it could be some music, it could be some exercise, and it could be a good friend. And it could be just somebody you call up and just want to know how they're doing. You don't want to call them up and tell them, oh, this is what's happening to me. It's so awful. And when they get off the phone, they feel just as worse as you do. And you don't appreciate it. You'll support it. But people, they love comebacks. There's 2 kinds of people. One who can't wait for you to fall off your high perch. And the other group, they can't wait for you to climb back up. And I found that through the worst of times, you find out who your true friends are. When everything is fine and sunny, everybody's having a party, you can't distinguish. But when things go south and people are like, I don't want to be associated with that person. I don't even want to be around that person. And it happens. And it's a good thing, because I used to always say, you want to get all those loose leaves off the tree. And I remember I had a chain of stores here and in the Midwest, and things went south. They always do when you fly too close to the sun. And I remember bringing all the managers in one night and had a big meeting. And I said to everybody, here's what we're going to have to do to get back on our feet. It's going to take some sacrifice. And anybody who isn't worthy or capable of it, I need to know now. Or I think I said, I'll wait till tomorrow to let you think about it. And like 7 out of 8 managers decided to leave, and that wasn't very encouraging. But I said, hey, let them get out of here early if they're not going to stick around, so we can build with the right people. And we got back even better in time. But, too many people hold people close to them when they're not there anymore. They don't want to accept that this person isn't my friend anymore, or this person isn't supporting what I'm doing anymore. So they try to make excuses, try to patch things up, but it never really works. And, it's better to know what you need to know as fast as you can. And that's why I always felt like, anybody who puts you in that purgatory of maybe is not helping you, right? It's like, if you tell me yes, I'll take it. If you tell me no, I'll accept it. But if you say, well, call me next week, it's like nothing is going to happen, and you want things to happen. You want to make things happen. And just activity is so important, to get out of bed, to get out of the house. And sometimes it's a struggle. I remember some days when the best part of life was sleeping. Because when I woke up, within 5 minutes, I found myself into this situation. And it's not easy, but it never is if it's worthwhile. And I think that's where you got to be as big a friend as you can. So I believe, Kelly, what can you do?
Yes, both y'all. I mean, what kept coming to mind now is quality time. And I always loved on how you're always able to bring food into the conversation. But quality time, like that is, and I think now as we all, like, who can believe it's the end of October? Mind blower for me, anyways. And I do think it's always a reminder for all of us going into the holidays and time with family and quality time. And I've been spending an awful lot of time with my family lately, and a lot of time in San Diego. And it is all about that. It is all about the quality time, those moments where our phones are out of sight and, we're just there and present in the moment with who we're with. It's not about, like you were saying, Dawn, it's not about spending money. It's just about being together. I love the fact that both my nephews asked me, one of them asked me to go to church because his wife was sick. So I took him to church. You know Blake, Dawn, and I took him to church, and his brother Dylan and his wife were like, "Oh my gosh, we should have asked you." And then it was like, no, we shouldn't have, because then she would have had to choose which one to go with. So, it was kind of funny. But it was all about the time and those moments. That's what we remember. We don't remember, like, truthfully, like what article I read last week that at the moment I was like, "Ooh, this is a game changer." However, I do remember books. There are books I always remember. And you were talking about Eckhart Tolle this week. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, The Power of Now, because that was one of my favorite books ever, for a whole bunch of reasons. But there was, I listened to it on audiobooks when I was in Carlsbad. This is a total side digression note. When I was in Carlsbad, sitting on the beach under a big umbrella and listening to Eckhart Tolle, and his voice on audio is like, and sitting with the beach and the breeze and all the things, like it couldn't have been more perfect. And he was talking about, when people lash out at other people, how it is, hurt people basically. But he said it's a pain center. There's recognize that a pain center is ignited. And honestly, later that day, I had an interaction with this woman that was mind blowing to me. But I honestly sat there and just sort of looked at her. She was getting him at my mom, and Dawn, you know my mom too. She's the sweetest little thing, because they wanted our table, and there ensued this argument, which was ridiculous. And I just sort of looked at her and I said, I will pray for you. Like, I am so sorry. And I thought, man, it's a good thing I was listening to Eckhart Tolle, because being mouthy, and especially around my sweet mom, I would have probably not had those words before. But I think it is all about how we do take in quality information and then apply it into the world. Because when we do change our perception, I think of how other people respond, and know that it's not about us. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. The only thing we're in control of is how we respond to it. And that's, where our own personal quality comes in. Did I want to be the person that got back in this lady's face and was yelling at her, and then we ensued to have an argument? No, because that's not who I am. I've never been a fighter, for lack of a better. I've always been a de-escalator, or an avoider, and that's a whole different show. But I think, truthfully, what we're all talking about is how we spend our time and the quality of the time that we spend, and where we're spending it, how we're spending it, and again, what we're consuming and who we're surrounding ourselves with. So that was just kept what coming when you both were speaking, was really about quality time, and how important that is. And to remember that, certainly through the holidays, of course, everybody knows I'm a mental health warrior, for lack of a better term, and remembering a lot of people struggle through this time of year, and, spend some quality time with someone, because nobody, and I know I've told this story many a times before. I'm coming up on a 2-year anniversary of one of my dearest friends passing. And when he was, spent the last 2 weeks in the hospital, he wasn't talking about wanting to get on social media one more time and do one more post, or, to spend one more dollar, or to drive one more rad car. He just wanted to be with the people he loved, and that's quality time. So I just feel like that's such an important thing for everyone to remember, and also to point out the fact of when people do lash out, do know that it is about them, and likely a pain center or something deeper, and that it is not about you. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, that's terrific information and insights. Jason, coming up on top of the hour.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's here we are again. So a point that I'm going to go back to a point that Kelly had made about the restaurant recommendation, because we have in NLP, there's meta, and there's just more filters that we go through. One of the filters is what's important to you: activity, people, or items and choices. And so that person that recommended that restaurant, it might not have been the best food, but maybe they know the people there, Or maybe they like the level of activity, whether it's really quiet and calm, or it's really bustling and busy. You know, we all have those preferences, or food. And when you were looking for a recommendation, you had certain criteria that you were looking for, and maybe it was just the food, and so it didn't line up. So that's the thing, when we look at quality, we have to be honest with ourselves about what criteria are we using to say something is of quality. And whether you're looking for a job or a partner or a product, being aware of, okay, so there's this quality, people are telling me this is a great product. Like, people recommend shows to you, and we watch a show and you're like, that was really bad, I didn't like that show.
Ooh, I've had a few of those.
But to them, and I've recommended shows to people, and they're like, oh, that was really nice. Actually, I don't, because I'm pretty aware of this, but like, my wife will be like, I should recommend this. It's like, don't, just let it go. But that's the same thing with everything in our lives, is that, you know, how we ascribe quality. And like I said, you know, from the very beginning, about who measures that. Well, we measure that. And so quality of life, connection. Kelle just talked about it's connection. And it's connection to self, connection to others, and connection to something bigger than all of us. Those three connections, that's the quality of life. That's where we all end up, you know. And I'll leave it with that.
Yeah, mic drop.
Well, you know, when we're closing out the quality conversation, it is about quality time, but it's also about quality people.
Right.
It's quality environment. You know, what makes you comfortable? What makes you safe? What makes you peaceful? And it's usually the little area that surrounds you. You could be in the biggest mansion, but you're only going to occupy one room at a time,
Love it.
right? And all you need is that one room. And sometimes less is more because it's simpler. You know, I mean, we used to have, this house was enormous, was just beautiful in every way, but we felt small compared to it. It was way too big. You know, my mother spent her last 2 years there, and that made all the sense. But when she left us, the feeling in the house left us, because every time I'd walk by that room, there'd be that feeling of loss or missing or our wish, you know, and we had to eventually leave to find something that was more relatable. And simple is so easy to deal with. It's when things get convoluted and complicated. And, you know, people recommend things. You know, there was somebody who said to me, I think it was Jim Rohn or somebody like that, in this big conference, you know, his whole thing was being modest, being humble, you know, and enjoying the little things in life you take for granted. And if you can live small, you can live happy. But if it requires a lot, like, hey, I just got to have 3 lobster tails now, and they've got to be this big, or, you know, or, hey, I'm not driving a car. I mean, my cars used to be significant at one point. And what I learned over time, I get all the gizmos and gadgets, and I never even learned how to use them, you know? And after a while, I feel like, what do I need this stuff for? And now I go for a little bit more compact, a little bit more practical, easy to park, easy on the fuel. And I'm not racing down the street. Most of the time, I never even get on a highway these days. It's just a certain route to Costco, or a certain route to somebody's house. And it's more pleasurable. Plus, when you need less, there's less pressure to get more. Right? So many people have to go to work. I got a house payment, I got a car payment, I got all this credit card debt. I don't have a choice. Well, who put you in that situation? Who put you in a position where you overspent? And most of it's showing off, right? You're keeping up with the Joneses. Somebody got something and you feel like you need to get it to keep up. But you're chasing a car that when it stops, you don't know what to do with it. Yeah, that whole story of a dog. What does a dog do when it catches the car? I don't know. Maybe chase another car. But it's the same thing with life. Is it worth it? And is it worth putting your eggs in one basket, that you can get crushed if it doesn't work out for you? And I think you got to look ahead and have a reserve, have a little money saved up, have something that you say, hey, if life is too much, I can take a month off for 2 months and still survive. And I would never go to the store and buy something. I mean, we got rid of all our credit cards a long time ago. And if we can't afford it, we don't get it, because we don't want to buy something and then have payments forever and interest and find out we didn't really enjoy it that much, especially if you know what you're going to put yourself through. So, the saying short-term pain for long-term gain, or short-term gain for long-term pain, really can be something you can relate to and calibrate to. So, it's interesting how we start with quality, end with quality, but have taken so many routes and streets and journeys on our way that we come together with being better for the time together. And these thoughts and ideas will embed themselves, and slowly something may blossom, and you may never know what conversation it came from or who it came from, but it happened. And that's the magic of living and life, is the curiosity, the unknown, what happens next. And a lot of times, the last thing I'll say is you got to separate yourself and sometimes be above it and not in it. Sometimes it's too difficult to be in the moment, and you just got to detach and say, hey, I'm not ready yet. I'll get back to you when I am. And that's giving yourself some grace. So final words, Jason and Kelle, and I always love Kelle's closing statement. So Jason, you can go first, and Kelle can hit the high note.
I'm good. My internet connection's messed up, and I think I said it before. So I'd love to hear what Kelle has to say to wrap this up.
I think Jason had his mic drop moment.
Okay. Well, and technology stated what needs to be done. Kelle.
Yes, and to wrap back into quality, because there is nothing better than spending quality time with people that I care about so much. So I always appreciate having a conversation, on Thursday, whether it's with, Jason or Dave or whoever else. It's always just such a privilege, and it's such a good use of quality time together. And I do always encourage people to be sure to go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
That's so lovely. Never get tired of hearing it. And I think we can all get better by being better together. And I think that's where that comes from. So thank you, audience. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Kelle, for another unbelievable